get roped into an illegal activity, I'll say war adventure, because what else is it? But when you get a real short guy from France saying, come over and help me, I want to look like a leader, and then you get a guy from Canada saying, hey, US and UK, you guys have the skill, you guys have the experience, you temporarily have the hardware until the New World Order cuts it all away from you, like your Harriers. Let's see, you lost a bunch of Harriers, some helicopters, transports, 2 Nimrods, we're in the UK. The Royal Navy, as it is at its lowest fleet size since 1633, correct me if I'm wrong?
Correct.
What's wrong with this picture? Someone's trying to destroy the United Kingdom, and the same party is trying to destroy the United States. And you're welcome to do so, but over the dead bodies of those of us in this room, I would submit. So, harping on Libya, what we have there, among others, is we have the French Air Force taking credit for the thinking, which isn't going to make him any taller. Come and get me, Sergeant. Then you have the Canadians, and just a minute, I'm not going to humiliate anyone. I'm a positive guy. I'll never say a negative word. But is there a single Canadian in the room? Good. Let me speak freely. Okay. What province? Where in Alberta? I can't hear him because I'm so old.
Edmonton.
Edmonton? Yeah. Then you know where Leduc is, don't you? So don't try to match wits with me. I'm all over Leduc. I know Edmonton. I've been there many times. And so I'm a global traveler as opposed to an Irish traveler. And I learned a lot of interesting things on this trip. And one was when I looked through your phony baloney UK census that's apparently being serviced out of America.
Yeah.
So let me see if I get this right. We as Americans are going to census you, and your corporation named Serco is going to hold our nuclear codes, which is something no one in this room has ever heard before. If anyone's ever heard that Serco controls our nuclear codes, and I'm not trying to humiliate you collectively, but is there anyone besides me in this room who's ever heard of Serco controlling the U.S. codes? Good for you. I want to talk to you later in a positive way. Serco is a big company, and they got their fingers in a whole lot of pies, and I think they need to wash their hands and get their hands and their fingers out of America. And if they'd be willing to do that, which they won't, because they control prisons, they control military food supplies, and if someone wanted to come over to America and put me in martial law, what better contractor than Serco? Because they could put me in prison, then they could give me bad food. They wouldn't have to keep me very long. And you know, I got bad news for Serco. And so those of you who don't put any church, and I don't care what church it is, but anybody that goes to church knows there's a higher power, and I'll leave it at that. But Serco could poison me. Shorty in France could put me on a stretchy, which reminds me, he might want to try that first. David Cameron might wonder how I know his dad was a Lloyd's name, who was among the 30 high judges and 50, is it MPs or PMs? MPs? Yeah, 30 judges and 50 MPs lost a lot of money on some asbestos things with Lloyd's. And apparently a syndicate, whatever that means, to me it means criminals, they said, don't worry, you'll get your money back. Yeah, sure, you take care of those guys and you let all the taxpayers eat it. And that's what they do in America. Now, we don't call it syndicate in America. In America, there's an organization called AIG. And when America's economy was recently gutted, the most recently gutting, it's funny, our congressmen and our senators voted to give a lot of protection to AIG, and it didn't take too many of us alert Americans long to figure out that AIG controls the retirement of our Congress and our Senate. But that's of no interest to you because you're English, right? Except for you're getting us and we're getting you, and we have no problem. Americans and English people have no problems. And let me go and suggest one potential problem. There's probably some English folks in this room right now who take terrible exception to American foreign policy. Is there anybody that agrees? Yep, I thought so. Let me shock you. So do we. And this is right back at you guys, England, because our American foreign policy comes right out of the City of London, and the only place it stops before that could be Brussels or the Vatican City. But America is the bully force for the global elitist bankers. The City of London is the controller for the global elitist bankers. And the other city I mentioned apparently likes to mislead people into believing if they pay so much money, they're not going to have something accountable at the end of their life, which is not true. But I'm sad to say, after spending 26 years in the U.S. military, being the son of a career Air Force pilot who was a POW of the Japanese, who, by the way, just to show you that I can turn the corner in a split second. Anybody in here have any firm feeling about the Japanese earthquake being a natural event?
Unnatural.
Some of you do, some of you don't.
Unnatural. That's
yeah, you're right. It wasn't. And I say that on the strength of the small group I work with, which is global. There's two ladies in this room, and there's one gentleman who are in our group as researchers. I think I can proudly say I'm the least intelligent of the group, but I'm the most expendable, which is why I'm here. But we have a fellow in Japan who has told me one-on-one that the Japanese government is absolutely 100% sure it was not natural. If it's not natural, the only other choice is
HARP.
HARP. Okay, how many hands for HARP?
3 hands.
Okay, put your hands down and let me entertain you with some real live, real interesting truth. Today is Saturday the 3rd of April. If I was smart enough to remember what the last Wednesday in March was, which would have been somewhere around March 22nd or 3rd, I was in the HARP control room of the biggest HARP facility in the world, and I'm going to rule out Alaska. And I'll put it to you folks, anybody out there, except the people I've talked to, any guesses as to where the largest HARP facility in the world is?
North.
Here.
Okay, let's make it easier, because you guys are speaking English and I'm listening in Yankee. But I heard Australia. No. Did anyone say Puerto Rico?
No.
Hey, we're all learning. The biggest HARP facility in the world is in Puerto Rico. And you would think they'd have pretty good security if you understand that HARP can be used as a weapon. HARP also, according to the HARPers, they have a benign or benevolent function too. That's great. But now I'm going to demonstrate to this gentleman who knows almost everything except Puerto Rico that I'm going to turn on a dime another time because I said that HARP could be used for good or bad purposes. That brings me around to how I got started with Brian Garish and Mike Robinson and the UK column. The only reason I'm standing here before you today is I have the profile of being one of the highest visibility 9/11 truth activists out there in America. And I know there's many people in this room that smell a rat with 9/11, and it's a pretty smelly rat. But the one thing I have that's fairly unique is I can guarantee everyone in this room, and I will match wits with you, I'll arm wrestle you, you can throw me out in the alley. There's not anyone in the United States of America that knows more about the flying events of 9/11 than I do. And that could sound like a boast. It could sound like the statement of some demented man who wants to be put in a hospital or incarcerated, or it could be the truth. But let me tell you, first of all, let me tell you, I don't like doing what I'm doing right now. I don't like standing up in front of any crowd and saying that my country has participated in the intentional attempt to destroy my country. Now, I'm not going to ask if anyone in this room believes Muslims participated, or worse yet, and impossibly unlikely, that Muslims conceived and executed the attacks of 9/11. But from soup to nuts, I can explain it to anyone who's reasonable, and that's the reason I'm here today. But in researching 9/11 and filing 3 lawsuits, I have become a member of this group, which is Able Danger, and our website is Able Danger, A-B-E-L, not A-B-L-E, abledanger.net. And I would be willing to bet in a group this size, I will probably hear from 20 of you that think you might have information that we don't have. And I hope all 20 of you are right. And if anybody wants to write down my email address, I'll try to speak as British and as slowly as I can. In fact, I'll do it alpha-phonetically, which means I will say Foxtrot instead of F. My email address is Foxtrot Bravo India FBI at Uniform Sierra Delta Oscar Juliet United States Department of Justice. We can play that game. .gr, and GR stands for Greece, because when as a naive patriot who goes to church, when I discovered what I discovered, I was compelled by two different laws to report it to some authorities, which I did. And by the way, if anybody wants proof of anything I say, you've got my email address, FBI at USDOJ, and I use both